Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Vlog Canada. My name is Jawad and I'm from Calgary, Alberta. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to apply for a Canadian passport. And basically, pretty much we're going to talk about the application process, how to fill out the application, what are the mandatory documents you need to submit along with your application, and how exactly you can submit your application either by paper, mail, or in person, right? But first of all, many congratulations to those who have recently become Canadian citizen. Great work, guys. Now, when I applied for Canadian passport a while back in person, I still remember there was a long queue. A lot of people were already in the queue and they were, basically they were waiting for hours and hours, right? And eventually, I still remember a couple of people that actually they went to the counter and unfortunately their application was incomplete and they were asked to come back later on some other time, right? With the complete application, right? So this is what the current situation is as well. I know one of my cousin recently applied for a Canadian passport and he had to wait like for several hours and eventually we were told that, the application is incomplete. Get it filled properly and then come back again, right? So this is very important to understand that when you're submitting your Canadian passport application, you have to make sure it's a complete application you're taking along with you, and it basically meets all the requirements. So based on my own experience, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share some tips here, and we will also be going through some resources that are available on canada.ca. So just make sure you guys are watching this video from the start till the end so that you guys will have a complete understanding about the application process, and you will also have an idea how exactly you can apply for it, what documentation you'll be needing. So make sure you watch this video from the start till the end. Right, guys, as you can see, this is the official website of Government of Canada and how to apply for an adult passport in Canada. So let's talk about the requirements, right? So there are different ways how you can apply for a Canadian passport. One of the ways you can either apply in person or by mail. I always recommend people doing it in person because that's going to save you a lot of time, because when you send in by mail, you'll, basically in case if they need more information, they'll have to contact you and that basically can delay the process, right? So, and in case if you're looking for urgent application, that is also possible. So you can follow the instructions provided here. Because in my case, I also wanted to travel. So I only had like few days. So I basically applied for by the end of next business day. I mean, it's not cost effective. It's of course it's very expensive as compared to the normal application, right? So as per your need, you can select it accordingly. Okay. Now let's talk about the application process. So basically these are the steps, right? You would fill out the application form, you would get all the documents, you would find 2 references, submit your fees and submit your application, pay your fees and get your passport, right? So the best way to do this is I'll leave the link in the description as well. So you can download the form from their official website and you can fill out the form electronically as well. And that's the best way to deal with this application form. The other option you have is go to the Canada Post Office and you can get the hard copies from there as well. And then you can fill it and submit it accordingly. Okay. Now let's talk about the documentation requirement. I'll show you how to fill out the form as well. So basically you need a proof of Canadian citizenship certificate. So you can click on that. So mainly if you're born in Canada, you can just take your birth certificate, that's fine. But if you're born outside of Canada, you must need a Canadian citizenship certificate. That's one of the requirement. And then basically if you have for example, if you have opted for an electronic citizenship certificate, that's what I opted for as well. So you can just simply take the copy of it. But if you have the original one, you can just simply print, like it's clearly mentioned, if you have a citizenship e-certificate, you must attach a printed copy. If you have a paper certificate, it must be the original document, not a photocopy, right? And otherwise, if you don't have it and you were born in Canada, you can just take your birth certificate, a document to support your identity. And that's going to be any of the Canadian issued IDs mainly. It could be a driving license, passport, healthcare, foreign passport, ID issued by the federal government, right? So accordingly, you can take any of these ID with you, right? And if you do have a copy, make sure it must be signed by a guarantor or signing official. And also you need 2 identical passport photos. On the back of one of the photos, the photographers must write their name, complete address, and the date the photos were taken. And this is basically, if you go to any photographer in Canada, they know the requirement. They'll basically give you 2 photos. Accordingly, one photo must be signed, and one back of the photo must be signed by the guarantor. You can go through the requirements here if you want. Otherwise, like I mentioned earlier, they already know the requirements, right? Basically, the photographers, they know the requirements. You just have to make sure there are 2 identical and unaltered photos. with one of the photo at the back of it. They'll basically stamp it, and then the guarantor must clearly write, I certify this to be true likeness of the applicant name, whatever your name is for an application, sign the back of the photo. So basically the guarantor will sign up here, right? So that's the requirement for the photos. And then basically the other thing you need to do is find two references. Guarantor, so who could be your guarantor, right? So that's one of the things we can quickly look into. So the guarantor could be anyone. That could be a friend and family, that could be your relatives, that could be a spouse, right? So anyone can be a guarantor, right? As long as they're a Canadian citizen, um, basically they can be a guarantor, and as long as they know you for at least 2 years. So that's one of the requirements. And they basically be a Canadian citizen, 18 years of age or older, and they hold a 5-year or 10-year Canadian passport on the day you submit your application is expired for no more than 1 year, or valid meaning it's not or was not expired damage, right? So that's one of the requirements for who could be a guarantor. You can go through this accordingly, right? And then accordingly, the guarantors can basically sign your photos, and they can sign on your form as well. Now you also need to find two references for your application. References cannot be your friends or family members. They can be anyone else. They know you for at least 2 years for passport application, right? Similar to the conditions for guarantor is, and that's pretty much mentioned. They cannot be your relative, friends, family members, parents, siblings, and all that, right? So make sure you follow the instructions provided. And then basically after that, you have everything ready, you can submit your application. Now let's talk about the application form. So this is the application form. So basically, in the first section, you can mention your name as requested to be appear in the passport. Your given name, surname. If you have an anticipated date of travel, basically just mention it accordingly, the month and the day. If you don't have anything, just leave it unknown. And then parents' name and at the birth, applicant place of birth, city, country. Select the country where you were born, date of birth, gender, right? Current home address, mailing address, email address. So in my case, I already basically, if you know you must know your eye color and the height in centimeter. Just enter that information, enter your current address and mailing address, and this is where you're going to be signing it, right? Make sure to go through the instructions for signatures as well. Make sure signatures are not going, basically it's not going out of this border, right? So you must sign within the border, okay? And then you would put the date when you're signing it, the date where it's signed, for example, in Calgary, whatever the city is, province, right? And then this is a section must be filled by your guarantor. Basically, they'll name, first and last name, or the given name, date of surname, date of birth, Canadian passport, date of issue, date of expiry, relationship to you, telephone numbers, their home address. They must sign it here. For how many years they have known you. So basically, one of the criteria, they must have known you for at least 2 years. And they will basically sign here, and they will do one of their signature on the back of your photo, like we just discussed the requirements earlier. Make sure they put the date on it, signed it, where the city and the province, and then basically previous Canadian documents. So we're just talking about a fresh application. In your case, if it's applicable, fill it accordingly. Proof of Canadian citizenship certificate. So two conditions. If you're born in Canada, you may have the birth certificate. You can just mention it accordingly. But if you're born outside of Canada and you have the Canadian citizenship certificate, or whatever the other documents you have, just mention the certificate number or date of issue or effective date of citizenship. And this is something you can find on your Canadian citizenship certificate, right? And then basically the other section is to support your identity. We already talked about the IDs, so make sure you include your driving license number, document number, the driving license number, the date of expiry, or your name as it appears on that document. This is where you'll do your second signature, right? The first one you will do up there, the second signature on the date, and then basically choose one of the periods. So if you're looking for 10 years, I think this is, it's better to go for 10 years, up to you, whatever you want to do, just go for 5 or 10 years accordingly. Then basically mention 2 years of address history. If you need more pages to enter that information, you can download this form from here, right? And then the other thing you need to make sure it's your occupation in the last 2 years, employed, self-employed, unemployed, whatever your occupation were in the last 2 years, record it accordingly. So they just want to see your last 2 years occupation, right? If you've been employed, just mention it. If you've been unemployed, homemaker means, like, for example, if you're a housewife or you don't do anything, you just take care of your home, there's basically fill it accordingly. But you just have to make sure it's covering 2 year period. References we already talk about. So whoever your references are, make sure their signatures are not required. Their name, address, telephone numbers, email address, how many years they've known you for. Just mention that accordingly. They must know you for at least 2 years, like it's mentioned, right? And then emergency contact in case. I mean, it's not mandatory, but it is always recommended, right? In case of emergency required while outside of Canada, they can contact that number or that person. Signature of applicant, that's going to be a signature, your date on it. So basically there are three signatures of your required, one signature of guarantor. That's how you'll be filling out the application. So this is basically what the same thing is. It's just a checklist. You can go through this in the end, right? And if you're filling out a child application, you can follow the instructions provided. So that's pretty much all about the application, right? And this is all about the tuition fees as well. So you can go through this accordingly, okay? So that's pretty straightforward process. So in case if you do decide to send this application by mail, make sure you fill out the credit card information. Otherwise, you're going to simply go in and basically pay in person using your credit or debit card. These are the fee structure: 5 years for 120, 10 years for 160. I hope this process has been successful. I mean, you were able to understand this clearly. If you have any doubts or concerns, just leave it in the comment section for me. That's it, everyone. Well, applying for a Canadian passport, it's a straightforward process. So make sure you do follow the instruction provided in this video, and you do also follow the instruction available on Governments of Canada's website. And I hope you like this video. Hope this video has been helpful. So do like and subscribe to my channel, and do share it with your friends and family members as well. And I hope to see you in the next vlog very soon. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.